Welcome back to the Opposition Podcast. It's Thursday night, the 29th of May, and Rukshan has not pulled out of an episode in a couple of weeks. We're doing pretty well. How you doing, Rukshan?
Mate, I'm doing good. It's so true. I can't believe it. It's almost like a dream. Harvey's been consistent, been turning up to every episode, and that's a lot more you can expect. Lot more than I'd expect from him. With his track record of not showing up. So he's doing pretty well, guys.
Speaking of not showing up, we want to apologise for Tuesday night's show, where it turns out, I think that it was...
This is a pretty funny story.
It's a pretty
crazy story. Are you going to tell the
story.
actual story?
What is that?
Are you going to tell the actual truth, the story?
Yeah, I'm going to tell the story. Look, correct me if I'm wrong, if live fact check. So essentially, I invited Jerry onto the show, who's from the South Sudanese community. He's been outspoken prior to COVID, but during COVID, he rose to prominence, speaking out against the government. But he also in the past spoke out about the African gang crisis that we had probably in 2018 era. And I had his number from COVID still, and I messaged him to ask him if he'll come on. He said, yeah, sure. And he just didn't show up. And I was a little bit concerned. And I'd messaged him to see that he was all right or whatever. And then I thought, maybe, because I messaged him. I didn't even call him. And I thought, so I messaged him on X, where I know it's definitely him. And he said he's actually in Africa and somebody else has his phone. Or he's given up his phone. I didn't understand exactly what happened to his phone.
Yeah.
But it wasn't him. And it turns out somebody was just pulling
That's
our leg.
Hilarious. I want to get that Jerry that replied back to you on the show, because I want to know what their story is for just saying, giving a thumbs up or agreeing to come on the show when it's actually not Jerry.
Do you reckon they're watching it?
Do
you reckon they're on the show tonight watching?
Yeah, I don't know. But that's just one of those funny stories that will go down in the history books of the Opposition Podcast as another moment where Avi just screwed it all up. So add it to the list.
There's a few of those. Look, we don't have much time because we have a packed show tonight. We have two guests. We promoted the second guest that's coming on from 7:30. But the first guest is no less important. In fact, she's done some fantastic work. We did a report with her during the election. Our surprise guest, welcome to the show, Bianca. How you doing?
Hi, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for coming. Now, for those that don't know who you are, where have they been?
So I'm Bianca Colleia. I ran for One Nation in the seat of Bruce. As you can probably tell from my thick accent, I am from Italy. I've been in Australia since 2016, and I gave up my Italian citizenship to run for the federal government. So yeah,
was it worth it?
I definitely think it was, and for me, I think this is just the start. Change is not quick to come. It takes time, and we got a long road ahead. So, yeah, we got a lot of work to do.
I think actually, Bianca, you ran a brilliant campaign, because I was watching from the sidelines, and a lot of people sometimes they run as candidates and don't get too involved, but you were very involved, trying to engage with the community and making a lot of content and kind of the example of a modern candidate, and really representing the views of One Nation. Do you now that it's all done and dusted, are you relaxing, or are you doing something else now?
Probably, as you probably can see from my socials, I've been offline for a bit. I just needed to take a little break, because it's been a couple of very, very busy months, especially leading up to the election. But yeah, now the dust is settling, all the results are finally in, and now it's all about planning on a strategy moving forward.
Well, Dream M in the comments says that they voted for you. But the reason why I wanted to bring you on tonight, just before we get into the rest of our discussion about the story that's been making headlines, I did see your video yesterday on X, and I thought we'll unpack the Senate results. So I've actually got the Senate results, the final results here loaded. We can see that Labor's going to have about 30. It looks like they're going to have 30. Liberals only 27, Greens 11, which I believe means they lost one. And that would mean, so Labor has gained 5. The Greens have lost 1. One Nation in an amazing turn of events after what we're about to discuss. They actually did manage to get 2. We have Malcolm Roberts, who kicked out Gerard Rennick, and I got to say, I am super happy about that. I think Gerard Rennick, what he did in this campaign, I don't care what you believe about his politics or not. I think the way he behaved in this campaign against One Nation was dividing that base. It was such a silly and awful campaign, and that was a broader problem. I've seen a few of these candidates. Basically, One Nation should have 6 seats right now, and taken a couple of the Greens, but because of the Gerard Rennicks and the Clive Palmers, there wasn't that 6. He's kicked out Gerard Rennick, who is, by the way, prediction, going to fade into irrelevance once he doesn't have the taxpayer-funded staffers to run.
He's very bitter on his socials. He keeps throwing mud on One Nation every day. That's pretty much all he talks about. So it's a bit bitter, is he?
Yeah, he'll be dirty, but at the end of the day, once that those staffers and that money dries up, he's not going to pay for it out of his own pocket.
I thought, for what Gerard Rennick ran as a campaign by him, like in the People's First Party, I thought he did an overall good job in terms of not having the Liberal Party machine behind him, and One Nation's also a bit more established in terms of getting his message out there. I think
Sure.
As a campaign, he did a really good job, because there was a lot of momentum for him, at least online, of people who resonated with his message.
And I know you don't want to get hated by that base right now, but I don't care to call a spade a spade.
It's not about not getting hated. I'm just saying it as it
Gerard
was.
Rennick lost his way, and he made his campaign about taking down One Nation. And at that point, you've lost it. I didn't care about individual politics. I debated him on individual politics.
He's got to win, because One Nation is who he's got to defeat. I mean, maybe Bianca might be able to answer this better, but in that campaign, it was realistically, it was going to come down between Gerard Rennick or Senator Malcolm Roberts. Like, he had to take One Nation out to win. I mean, isn't that kind of what you want to do in politics to win?
Yeah, it was. But I was actually having a discussion about this earlier on X, and they were like, for him to have a chance of getting in, he had to start a new party. And that is exactly my point, because even if you look outside of Queensland, why did he have to start a new party? It's like with Clive, to just start division and to make sure that One Nation couldn't get anybody up. And, if his sole purpose was just to get his seat back, he could have run as an independent, or the best shot that he could have had, because it was a pretty tight game between him and Malcolm. But, Malcolm had the upper hand. He should have just wait until 2028 and run as a number 2 for One Nation this time around, wait for his time, and then run again in 2028, rather than doing what he did. And again, why did he have to run in every state? All he did, together with Clive, is to make sure that no Conservative senator got up altogether. And who is the ultimate loser? The Australian people. Because now, literally, Labor will have almost no opposition in both houses whatsoever. And it's going to be so hard to undo the damage of the work that these parties will do in the next couple of years. It's devastating.
Well, if you look at the numbers in the Senate, it is true that the freedom-minded parties should have had a senator up in every single state, and by the numbers, it should have almost been in every single one of them. It should have been One Nation, but that divide of votes killed it, gave it either to Labor or the Greens. In Victoria, they lost it, I think, to Labor, that last seat. But today there was some more good news for One Nation, though, and which was a little bit surprising, is they've pulled in a third Senate seat, so they got 3 out of what should have been, I believe, 6. Do you know this guy?
No, I don't. And it was a really beautiful surprise today. Made me feel a little bit better. But yeah, it's really great news. But also, we were so close here in Victoria, so close. We had a great candidate, Warren Pickering, and he again just missed by the tiniest of margins. And again, that's why to me it really comes back to the smear campaigns, because it was so close. It was for such a tiny margin. And it really hurts because, again, at the end of the day, it's not about us. We do this for the people and to do what's best for Australia. And then you have people like Clive who claim to be patriots. And when in seats like mine, just in Bruce in the lower house, he goes to preference the openly socialist, legalized cannabis party number 3 and put One Nation number 5. How can you claim to be fighting for the Australia and all the values that we love of Australia, that we want to preserve, when you go and preference socialist parties? And in other seats across the country, he preferences Labour and the Greens ahead of conservative parties. How can you justify that? And again, to me,
it was shocking. It was shocking.
The only plausible answer that you can have is that you are doing that to just ensure that One Nation doesn't get up.
I think there was different. Like, I personally think that the motivations were different for someone like Clive and Gerard Rennick. I believe Gerard Rennick was very much just going head to head with One Nation because that was who he was fighting for those votes.
Same people.
Yeah. Whereas Clive Palmer literally did it out of what seems like some sort of old petty argument. He literally they preferenced socialists ahead of One Nation in a number of seats. And then when they got called out and caught doing it, they claimed their system was hacked.
It was absolutely insane when I read that. Like, he literally had his candidates going back to him and be like, you need to change these preferences. And he told his own candidates to pretty much suck it up, princess, is what it is. And at the end of the day, when he pays for the campaign and for everything, all you can do is, again, suck it up and put your head down. Hence why a couple of his candidates ended up, not fully running out of the race, but actually, going on the newspaper and telling people, put me last because I won't stand for this. And to go and double down and say that they were hacked and now they had investigations. I'm going like, but please, what a joke. Do you think that the Australian people are that stupid?
Well, I got to say, well done. You ran a good campaign, and your Senate campaign was fantastic as well. Both of you, I believe, are fighters that are consistent and believe in what you're doing. Unfortunately, it's sad to see that neither of you got up, and certainly not in the Senate. He would have made an amazing senator. But it is what it is now. There is one silver lining, I believe, when I look at the numbers. I think that threat that we had of the Greens holding the balance of power, I'm not sure. I'm not sure they have it because you have the Labor Party has 30. I'd rather the Labor Party have full control and don't have to capitulate to the Greens and make deals with the Greens. In the lower house, they got nothing. They got one seat. There's nothing there. But in the Senate, it would have been a place where they could have made dirty deals to get their insane agenda through, or at least parts of their agenda through. But I don't know, because it looks like the Labor Party's got 30, so they gained 5. Then so if
I think
you
they
add
might
it all,
have the pathways with Jackie Lambie. She's up there now as well, and
exactly,
she
they got works
with them and David Pocock. So even without them,
I'm saying without the Green, they can get stuff done without the Greens, so they don't need to make deals with the Greens. If you crunch numbers, I was doing it. I don't know everyone that's involved, but it looks like, someone like Australia's jihadi voice, or it looks like they could. That maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it looks like because Labor's gained 5 and Greens have lost 1, that the balance of power isn't as clear cut as what we thought it was. We maybe wait for our friend Joel to come back and help us unpack the numbers, because there's a couple of people there I don't exactly know. But from just crunching it myself, it looks like they might have the power, unless the Greens align themselves with the Liberal Party. That might work. Who knows?
Well, speaking about all of that, I think since we last spoke as well, and Bianca, maybe you have a comment to make on this as well. We saw the Liberal Party have their breakup moment, like a marriage gone wrong, and then they had their trial separation, and now it appears that they're back together. Didn't last long. They've hashed it out. They've seen a therapist and worked things out, and they're kind of back together. What do you make of all of this? And what is kind of I think I saw One Nation or Pauline Hanson put out a call to the Nationals to join with One Nation. I could have misread that online, but how do you think One Nation sees this kind of split that you saw happen in the Liberal and Nationals? If you have anything to add to that.
Look, I don't know. I did see what you're talking about One Nation putting something out there. I don't think it was anything formal. I don't know too much about it from the inside. But what I can say is that the whole thing is just, sorry for the term, but a shit show. And now you got the new leader of the opposition, and it's not an opposition. In the press conference, when she was appointed, she said that, moving forward, they were going to, try to reflect a more progressive Australia. I'm like, well, if you want to be progressive, then you're in the wrong party, my friend. Like that's the whole point of being an opposition. And that's the whole thing throughout the whole Liberal campaign. There was no real opposition. They were just trying to match each other. And that's what's so terrifying, because by not having enough of us up there, you got even so many of the Liberals, but they are not a real opposition. They're just a Liberalite. So that's why it's so terrifying, because the Liberal Party is gone. And
Now, before go on.
I was going to say, I do think it does present an opportunity come next election for some of the parties like One Nation and other more established, like minor parties, to maybe pick up some of these Liberal and National seats where they're struggling with their identity. So I think it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, I do think so. But also just now, if you look at how much the One Nation vote has grown nationwide, has been an exponential growth, and especially now, again, with the landscape that we can see with how the Liberal Party is completely lost in a glass of water, I think that it will be a great opportunity to pick up those voters who have lost faith in the Liberal Party, and they can't see it as the Conservative Party that they were supposed to be. So there is definitely a good window there.
Yeah. Okay, before we let you go and have Kellie-Jay Keen join us, there was another story making headlines today that I thought might be good to hear your reaction on. We have Australia's US-born censorship czar could be banned from her own homeland after the Trump administration today announced that they will be locking out anyone who restricts free speech. She famously has gone up against Elon Musk. I guess it does depend if she gave up her US citizenship, I imagine. Do you think she has?
As far as I know, she's dual citizen.
Is she still a dual citizen?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe so.
I think somebody better let Trump know that he needs to first cancel her American citizenship.
We can extradite her anyway to the US. They can deal with her. I think there's options either way.
Yeah, they can take her and keep her there.
How do you feel about this new Trump administration idea to ban people from the country like Julian and Grant? It'll be interesting to see if they could actually put it on her, because if she's a citizen, she can get in. But the general idea, do you like it?
I think that this is a bit of a tricky one, because I do 100% support the principle behind the protection of free speech within America and the looking after of one's own country first and foremost, especially when it comes to foreign interference. But I think that this one could be a bit of a slippery slope because if we start denying visas to foreign officials because we don't like how they handle speech, um, I think we need to be careful not to set up precedents that justify censorship, like in the reverse, because that's what we've seen, with Candace Owens and Trump Jr. here in Australia. So I sort of support that principle, but I think it can become a bit of a slippery slope if we start using that as a precedent.
Look, this is why I like you. You're always consistent. You don't just go with the flow. You have your own brain. You critically think. I think it's funny. But I do hear your argument, and I do think it's especially funny if she isn't a dual citizen, because I do feel like she's the driving reason, the force behind why they want to.
I think not just Australia, but around the world. I mean, this is kind of her masterpiece, like the great painting that she's putting together is this kind of whole censorship thing that she's got going, which she's been trying to do for years. But on what Bianca said, I think it's good to be cautious when it comes to this kind of tricky situation around free speech. But I do believe the Trump administration and America's hand has been forced, because you have the EU, you have these globalist bodies who are putting weight on American corporations to censor people, sometimes within their own country. And I think, it's good that America throws their weight around in this respect, especially with countries like the UK and Australia, where they've really gone the opposite direction of what the Western tradition is around this concept. So to have that balancing, I think you do need a few brash actions, maybe by the US, to kind of reset some of these boundaries, like the tariffs, just to reset this area, to say, like, as an American, president or American administration, we don't want the EU, Australia, or the UK interfering with our corporations and our companies when it comes to the free speech right of Americans and American companies. Like, you can't have Julie Iman Grant or any other Australian officials, like we had Jackie Lambie from the Jackie Lambie Network, the politician here, talking about arresting Elon Musk. Like, this complete nonsense over speech things. Like, we cannot tolerate that, I think, as the US. So I think their hand's been forced, but it's good to be cautious, because it can be used when the next administration comes in. They can do the exact opposite.
100%. Yeah, that's my point. I 100% support the principle behind it. But then you have to be careful, as setting it a precedent for them using it against us as well. Because, again, when the next administration can come through, the first thing they will do is trying to keep people like us out. Exactly. So that's why it's a bit of a slippery slope, and you have to be really careful how you tread on that line.
Bianca, thank you for everything you do. Thanks for running. Thanks for a good, legitimate, genuine campaign. And thanks for joining us tonight. Where can people find you if they want to follow?
Instagram, Facebook, X. I also got a website, biancacolleia.com.au, where they can find me there as well.
Spell your last name for those that are not as...
Italian.
Collecia, Colleia.
Have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bianca.
There you have it. We've got Kellie-Jay on the line. We'll bring her in straight away, because we may not have too long with her. Welcome to the Opposition Podcast. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. How are you?
We're not doing too bad. Look, we've had to put up with Rukshan until now. It's better to have you in here with all the colourfulness in it. Now, you've been a busy girl lately, but tonight I want to actually bring you in to talk about something that's been playing out in Australia, because I can see that there's a lot happening in the UK and we're on limited time. The story that we've been following here, let's just watch the part of the initial announcement to it. If I can get it going.
Find out whether men... Well, Victoria's peak netball body is launching an investigation to find out whether men identifying as women pose a safety threat to female competitors. Now, it comes after Melton South players threatened to boycott games against Melton Central, whose team features 2 trans women. Melton South netball coordinator Melissa Dawson said, quote, "One of the transgender players is 6 foot something. It's ridiculous. Netball Victoria needs to put the safety of biological females first." And, well, she's not wrong. Here we go again. Because what this says is that...
So I'm sure you've seen the actual footage of, and I'll bring it up in a second. What's your reaction, firstly, when you saw that? When you heard the news?
I have to remind myself that this is Australia, right? Where men were men and women were women. I have to like tune into that version of Australia that doesn't seem to exist anymore. Well, certainly not in the media. I mean, he's massive, isn't he? He's a massive bloke. He's I just want to say that's not a knife. You know, he's ridiculous. Like, what happened to Crocodile Dundee? It's like, is Australia soon going to say, we're just going to try and find out whether crocodiles are dangerous for chickens? So we're just going to chuck them in the same kind of pen and let them fight it out. Like, insanity.
A bit of sanity seemed to come back.
Insanity comes from, though, I was going to say, Ivy, that insanity comes from the fact that even Netball Australia, Kelly, they're investigating whether, like, they have to have an investigation for something so obvious. Isn't the evidence that we're seeing just in that video or just in general from the women saying that they feel unsafe and they don't want to, shouldn't that be enough for a sporting organization?
I mean, ask a 5-year-old, they can tell you, can't they? This pontificating, like, I think this is the whole movement in a nutshell, is we're going to investigate to see if we get wet when it's pouring with rain. It's a load of people in an academic setting who like the sound of their own voices, trying to pretend that things are complicated when they're not. We just know that men are stronger than women. How do we know that? Because Australian men, I'm sure, are the ones that put the bins out, right? It's just, I don't even know how to say it any other way. The shortest sentence in the world, he's a man. That's it. That's all we need to say. Why can't that hulking great big bloke play in women's netball? Well, because he's a man. Full stop. End. See you later.
Well, I've got his the response that I found interesting. Rukshan, can you see that?
I can see it. Yeah.
Why don't you read it for us? Because at least the first couple of paragraphs.
Yeah, sure. So this is the statement put out by the individual. So I've sat quietly long enough while this narrative brewed, and I've been dragged publicly and without consent into a conversation where both my character and identity have been attacked. Now it's exploded across social media and news outlets. I'm not usually one to let outside noise affect me, but when opinions and statements are being twisted and presented as facts, I no longer feel it's my place to stay silent. This won't be a long novel because, frankly, these bigots don't deserve my time and energy, but since things have gotten nasty, let's set the record straight. Melton South Football Netball Club and your netball coordinator players, you're entitled to your opinions, but let's clear some things up. Your head coach tried to recruit me to play for club. Yes, your head coach tried to recruit me, the same club now publicly speaking out against me, bashing me and attacking the trans non-binary community in the media. It's the very club whose head coach approached me to join you. Do you want me to keep reading?
No, I think that's enough. So, when you read something like that, I don't know if they're lying, but I dare say they're not. It is a bizarre situation where the club that seems to have wanted him to play for them is suddenly now the one, when they realise that their secret weapon that they were trying to unleash on opposing teams is suddenly come back to bite them.
Well, it serves them right then, doesn't it? Like the head coaches, but it doesn't, the female players are the ones that are going to have to suffer. And there will be collaborators amongst the women playing. There'll be women probably injured by this bloke that are supporting his right to play in the women's netball. So, there's always been people willing to sell out women. Throughout South Africa, you have scouts going to find men with DSDs, like with intersex conditions, to come and compete for South Africa as women, like throughout all different countries in the southern part of the continent. So there's always been those people. But without good leadership, and that's what you need, the people paid the big bucks. They need to take a stand on this, and they've chosen not to. And as we've seen, many of them are collaborators in the demise of women's sport.
Well, for now, they have taken
interesting that I was going to say, I find it interesting that he kind of, or they put it as like, your opinions don't matter. It's like, what about the opinions of the women that obviously do find this as a problem? So it's kind of this, it's always been this mentality that I've seen when it comes to this issue. It's like this small group of people, like we are above everyone else and every other opinion does not matter. Is that changing, Kelly, throughout the world, or do you think we're in for more of this, even though, America's a bit different now in terms of this issue?
I think they'll double down, but I think the victim narrative is wearing a bit thin for a lot of people, and more people are waking up to it. But the institutions are really doubling down as well. Like we've just had that Supreme Court judgment, which hasn't changed the law at all. It's just clarified the law that we already knew, that if you have an Equality Act that covers both gender reassignment, whatever that might be, and I think it's nonsense, gender reassignment and sex, we know that those two things don't include then men as women in the sex part. That would be just ridiculous. What is the point of that act at all? But there's still, we've got councils and publicly funded bodies that are still trying to pretend that they can let men into women's spaces. So it just takes good leadership. What you had in America is you had the most terrifying situation right up until the point that Trump issued that executive order. So it just takes the political will, and unfortunately in the UK we don't seem to have it, and in Australia you definitely don't. So we'll see. I mean, maybe Moira Deeming's case might make some difference, but I think people will just pin that down to defamation, and they won't really look at the bones of what it was that Pasuto was saying and why he was saying it.
We're going to get into that in a second. Do you think the pendulum is swinging at all? Because I feel like there is a bit more of public, people publicly voicing their issue with the entire madness of it. Whereas, for example, when you were here, there was, people were a lot more afraid to speak up. Now, not so much, and it might be the Moira effect here, but I think the ruling, for example, in the UK shifted something here as well.
Yeah, we always have that. We always have a little bit of impact on Australia. Thankfully, at the moment, it's not coming the other way. So we're not taking some of your nonsense and making ourselves even worse than we are at the moment, which would take quite a lot, to be honest, because we are in a terrible situation in this country. But I think, because there's other issues as well that people can see, people can see it right in front of them and they know it's not true, and we're all a bit fed up now. I think just regular people are just a bit pig sick of it, of pretending that the thing that they see in front of their very eyes is not happening. I mean, for me, I want us to go so much further. So I want there to be no men cross-dressing as teachers in schools and doctors in hospitals and nurses and care workers. We have a case in this country at the moment where elderly women in their own home having state support will get a man pretending to be a woman to go and assess them on their own in their own homes. Like it's absolutely disgusting what's happening here. So I think those sort of things, they're beginning to be talked about more. And I dare say in Australia, like, the more mad it goes, the more people are like, hang on a minute, what, that bloke Riley Dennis is running around a football field, like semi-breaking people's legs. He hasn't broken anyone's legs, but injuring other players, and you've got Kirralie Smith. Can't remember her surname. Yeah, Kirralie Smith. She's being persecuted, and I think more people are waking up to, if it can happen to her, it can happen to anyone.
Yeah, Kirralie's actually one. She's an old school fighter. She's fought. I've known her for many years now, and she never backs down from a good fight. She's got, as I say, bigger balls than most men, in a good way though. What have you been up to since leaving Australia? And then I'm going to get into the John Pasuto thing, because I remember you were here. You had the drama here. I can't remember what order it was. I think then you went to New Zealand. And there was that shocking incident there. You haven't been back here. Have you been back to New Zealand since then? And what have you been up to between then and now? It's a couple of years.
Well, so much. So I was in your lovely country, and the whole time I was there, New Zealand were really whipping up a storm. And then we obviously had those lovely camp blokes in black that came along and stood near the meeting in Melbourne, and you very kindly interviewed me on those steps. So what's happened to me? So then on my way to New Zealand, my hotel was cancelled. When I arrived in New Zealand, they searched my bags for about 2 hours. The morning of my event in Auckland, I woke up to a note under my door. And I had a really bad feeling, quite intuitively, a really bad feeling about what was going to happen in New Zealand. And then obviously, for anybody that doesn't know, I really genuinely thought I was going to lose my life. In the middle of a mob, there were about 2,000 protesters that came out who didn't want women speaking, and they broke through the barriers, and the police were pretty much nowhere to be seen. New Zealand police had I don't know, they were so bad, they made the police in Hobart look heroic. And police in Hobart were absolutely dreadful, like proper dreadful. And then you had the Green politician who transed her own daughter. She was also in Hobart. So that was a very interesting event there. So anyway, so I went to New Zealand, and then because of what happened in New Zealand, I came to the attention of Megyn Kelly, and I managed to pique Megyn Kelly, who is probably one of the most influential, if not the most influential female conservative voices at the very least in America. And so she holds the line in her language, and she's been an incredible support. And then I decided to
Sorry, go.
I started That's all right. I started a political party over here called Party of Women, and that took about 11 months and a lot of money to get it through the Electoral Commission. So now I have a small political party with the intention that it can be like global, number one, and it's a disruptor. So it's just a place that women can speak about this particular issue.
That's the footage that you were talking about that day. Sorry, the sound came through.
No, I remember this whole time. It's like so confronting seeing this, because that first time I went to that the event that you had in Melbourne, Kelly, to film that and live stream it, I hadn't really touched on women's rights issues or kind of understood the issue too much. But seeing what happened in Melbourne and the fallout from that, and then seeing what happened in New Zealand and just how feral and disgusting it all was, and just the kind of the liberties that police or these protesters or whatever they want to call themselves took to attack women in the West, talking about their rights. It was quite confronting and shocking, and I think a lot of people maybe woke up to the issue just from those scenes and the way that you were attacked. And I know it's horrific for you, and we all saw it, but I think that really opened a lot of people's eyes to just how bad it has gotten for women, just gathering grandmas and ordinary people who aren't really activists, just talking about their rights, and just how under attack they are in the West. That's really the first time that I was exposed to it in that way. So I think it's had an impact on this particular issue. And for what it's worth, it's been a good impact, I think, for a lot of people who have woken up to it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I met a guy. So I live near the Roman city of Bath in the southwest of the UK, and my daughter was going to get a piercing, not septum. She was just going to get a little piercing in her ear, and the chap in there had heard of me being accused of being a Nazi in Australia, and then had been like, well, that doesn't sound right. And I was also accused of being a feminist, and I'm neither of those things. But he was like, that doesn't seem right. And so he looked into it and then saw what happened in New Zealand. So, I think as terrifying as it was, I think the net, it's a net positive that actually after that, people just looked at it. Because I think to imagine that middle-aged, like most of us are middle-aged or older, a load of middle-aged women coming to speak deserve quite young men. And in New Zealand, there was a woman that was punched like twice in the face. And I was obviously souped. And that soup picture is amazing. It's a fantastic, you couldn't set that up and take such a good picture, but I'm continuing to live stream, but I actually look like I'm doing taking a selfie. And And then that went everywhere because like these images, I just look quite defiant. But yeah, it's a definitely a net positive. And it sort of meant that more people got involved over here. More people in Australia had heard of it. New Zealand certainly woke up. Yeah, that's a great picture.
That's a great
chap
shot.
called Adam Baines took it. Yeah, yeah.
That is a
Pretty
fantastic
good.
shot.
Yeah.
So just before we move on to the thing, Rukshan, just read that one for us, and then I'll pull up the next.
Thanks for the super chat, Noble Birdo 2. Sport is the most visible, but most horrific is the men and women's prisons and care homes, vulnerable and invisible women. That's true. I think we hear about sports a lot, but I think what you were talking about before, Kelly, I can't imagine for an old grandmother to kind of have the carer come and it's this person that's cross-dressing. It must be very confronting.
Yeah, well, I think for them as well, there's a number of things that happens as a woman when you're faced with a man in a situation where you don't expect him to be and you feel out of sorts. And instinctively, women do a number of things. Number one, we assess what danger we're in, whether or not we can speak up. I would imagine the elderly women, in fact, I've heard from some of their daughters that they question their own mind. Like, are they really seeing a man in front of them? Is it genuinely a man? Would the council do this? Like, would anyone really subject an elderly woman to a man caring for her in her own home? And I think the same, we've had a case recently where there's some nurses taking the NHS to a tribunal because there's men in their changing rooms. And that's bad enough. Like if you're a nurse and you're working for the largest employer in the UK, which is the NHS, and you have to deal with men in your changing room, that's terrible. But imagine you're a cancer patient and you're on a ward and the doctor that comes round and you don't think that doctor or nurse, you can't speak up against them because what if then you don't get the care that you deserve? And we had a case in the UK where there was a lady going to a private hospital and she had to have quite invasive pre-op, and she's got a chronic condition that means she both needs both intimate areas examined before an operation. And she'd put on her notes that she really didn't want any males sort of having anything to do with her care, and she really wanted the privacy and dignity to make that choice. And halfway through her pre-op meeting, which fortunately she wasn't actually in a state of undress, a man dressed as a woman just bursts into the room for no reason whatsoever. And when she made a complaint, they cancelled her literal life-saving surgery. And it put it back by about 3 months, and she had to go to the Daily Mail before anybody even apologized. So these things are happening all the time, and the majority of the time they'll happen, and nobody even thinks that they can complain without there being some sort of quite pernicious and deadly serious retribution by the state.
It's shocking. So just before you go, we do want to hit that John Pizzuto story. So there was, obviously, for people who don't remember, let's quickly watch maybe a minute of the interview I did with you back then, if I can get sound.
Who's planning on expelling Moira. If the leader of the so-called opposition, who's planning on expelling Moira today, based on the lie that you're associated to neo-Nazis and Nazi sympathizers that he named, what would you say to him?
I'd say, I hope you have a good lawyer, because I think libel and defamation laws are pretty robust in Australia. So it's a shameful thing to do. And Moira's standing up for the safeguarding of children. You're supposed to be conservatives, for God's sake.
Absolutely. And now watching that back, we don't have to see what he says. Everybody knows what he says. It's been litigated in court, and he lost. He lost, by a lot. Me and Rukshan here, we watched that almost the whole trial. We did watch his cross-examination and the cross-examination of David Southwick and the other Liberals. How did you feel when the ruling came back?
Well, first of all, I was very tired because I also stayed up and I ruined my whole sleep pattern by
you should have
staying
joined
up every night and watching it.
You should have joined me and Rukshan in Bali. We were watching it with our wives killing us by the poolside and Long Island iced teas.
Oh, I wish I had been in Bali. That would have been lovely. But can I just comment on the trial? And Sue Chrysanthou.
Chrysanthou, yeah.
Yeah. how amazing was she? And from that trial as well, what did we call him? Dr. Him Collins, the other KC. What I really liked about him is he was really, really upset that I dared to take a song from Brigadoon and change the words. I think he must have mentioned it about 4 times that she said, what a day this has been, what a rare mood I'm in. It's almost like being a TERF. And that's from Brigadoon. And I just thought, that must be his favourite musical because he was so terribly upset. But the way that the Liberals are defending John Pizzuto, I mean, I just think he just made an arse of himself. Like, he just made himself look really stupid. And all he had to do at any point, or what he should have done as a Conservative, I think, is support women's right to free speech. And there was many ways he could have done that without, if he feels that he's at risk by knowing that women don't have penises, then, that's one thing. And I think he's a gutless coward and dishonest. But he could have said, I fundamentally support this woman's right to speak about women's rights and women to gather, and think it's shameful that anybody would try and stand in their way and that these women got protested. And he could have said that and still remain distant from the issue. But he chose to totally, A, lie, B, stick to it. And I think what we saw in that trial is a really slippery character. And I think that should be enough for people to say, that's it. Game over for him. He can't be leading anything because he can't. He's just not strong enough. He's quite a weak man. Let's get rid of him. But we'll see. I mean, do you think he'll get all the money, or do you think he'll have to sell his house?
It's actually due tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
So it's due in a few hours, John Pizzuto, and I think they're having a bit of a sook about the whole thing as well. Even some of the Conservatives are crying about it and saying that, Moira is being vengeful and things like this. All these kind of comments. And but I think when you look at it from, what had to happen in that case, and I know it's about defamation, it's about Moira, but I felt like a lot of women that were watching in Australia felt that outcome was a justice for a lot of the plight that they suffer as well with being labelled and having these kind of things thrown towards their way. So, I think it's not, he deserves every cent that he has to pay. Like, he has asked for it and he has to pay it. And I think it's right that Moira's gone after some of his backers in the Liberal Party as well and said, if he can't pay up, you leaders, Jeff Kennett and some of the other ex-premiers that backed him, you guys can pay up because you supported him so publicly. It's like, pay up. So I'm all for that, and I hope by tomorrow we find out if John Pizzuto's
MP Moira Deeming is threatening legal action against 3 former premiers as she fights to claim her payout from the John Pizzuto saga. It's yet another battle for the state opposition after 2 years of infighting.
The face of a leader watching his party being pulled apart at the seams.
I just want the thing done. We can't have this situation continue to roll on.
Moira Deeming throwing another hand grenade into the party room.
There's no case except the one against John.
The Liberal MP is threatening legal action against senior figures in her own party, including Shadow Minister.
The truth about that tale, though, is that is about the $2.3 million in legal fees, which, to be honest, I think that she almost would have to, if he can't pay for it, then they go after her. But there is a thing in the law where if they did publicly back and financially back the case, there is a legal grounds for them to go after those who backed it. That's why there's the threat. But it's just so funny to me that these people that had no problem with him potentially bankrupting her, first demonizing her, bullying her, kicking her out of the party, no one had her back then, or barely anyone. And now it's all the same people that are suddenly so worried that the legal fees that she's going to be up for, if it's not paid, that she's going after those who backed the campaign against her financially.
But this, I don't even understand. Like, what do you think happens if you enter litigation? If you lose, you pay. Like, it's I entered litigation against Pizzuto with the provision that I had indemnity insurance, or you don't quite have that in Australia, but I had something like indemnity insurance. So if I lost, I didn't pay. Because no win, no fee doesn't mean no win, no fee. It just means you don't pay your own lawyer, but you do pay other people's if you lose, which I don't think many people are aware of. But not to, he also had the most, if not one of the most expensive lawyers in Australia. Like Casey, him, Collins, Dr. Collins is a very expensive, quite rightly, highly skilled, although he did lose, which was wonderful. But he didn't have much to work with, did he? But a very highly skilled man who costs an awful lot of money. I think his hourly fees were higher than Moira's team. So what did anyone think he was going to pay for? And everyone knew at the beginning of that case what the facts of the case were. It wasn't like he didn't know he'd said the things that he'd said and they weren't true. Right from the off, when he decided to defend himself, he knew that he'd done it. They all knew he did it. They were all in the room when he did it. Everybody knew it. They had that recording. They were all there. He said the things that he said. He associated Angie Jones, who I think has come off so badly from this. She's just had such massive dramatic impact on her life, and she barely gets talked about. But Angie, myself, and Moira, we were absolutely terribly defamed. So of course he's got to pay. You can't do that. You can't try and ruin someone's life and ruin someone's political career in Moira's case. You can't try and do that. And then when she stands up for herself, say, oh, I didn't know I was going to have to pay. Boo-hoo, woe is me.
Yeah, and I think Moira offered plenty of opportunities leading up to all of this for ways out for these people. So it's not even like, she went for the attack and, all the money and stuff like they're making it out to be. Like they're saying in that news report, she's throwing a grenade and all this kind of stuff. She actually offered multiple opportunities for John Pizzuto to apologize and come to a more amicable arrangement, but they didn't want to do that. So like you said, Kelly, like once you go into litigation, especially as John Pizzuto, who's a lawyer himself, should know better than what the consequences will be if they lose. And again, I think pay up, John. Hurry up.
A defamation lawyer too. That is the funniest part of that story.
Is he?
Yeah.
Apparently.
Oh my gosh.
But look, to be fair, he's also meant to be a man, and he's barely that. So there's questions in this whole story. Rukshan, read that the thing for you.
Yeah, thanks, Jody, for the super chat. Thank you, Rukshan, for supporting Women Will Speak in April, and Kellie-Jay, I love you. There you go.
Ah. Well, I'd like to have done a Let Women Speak a rerun, but I didn't. I'm not allowed a visa.
You can't get to Australia.
No.
Yeah, that was denied. You didn't know this.
I didn't know.
Twice.
On what ground?
I paid like $300 as well for a just to make sure that they couldn't get me on anything.
On what grounds?
What they did is no grounds. What they did is they said nothing. And it just, when you go on to see your visa on an Australian, on the government website, it says, 10 days. This normally takes 10 days and tells you that you're nearly at the end of your 10 or 20 days, whatever it is. And it just kept saying processed. And then the date that I was going to have to fly went. And then about 4 days after, it then said it declined because obviously the date had gone by. So there was no point. So they didn't outright say you can't come here because they just made it was a processing issue.
Well,
so shady.
That's no good because this was my pride flag, but I don't know if now I can say that. I'm a bit ashamed.
Well, I think that's the only thing you can have pride in. I'm really hoping that I want flags back. I don't want to see flags on public buildings. So for me, that's the only pride flag that I ever want to see is a pride of one's nation. Because we're losing all that, aren't we? We're losing our nations.
Absolutely. Look, before we let you go, because I know you've got to go on us. We were having a debate in last week's show. I can't remember if it was Tuesday or Thursday. With one Limbrick, David Limbrick. Do you know you'd know David Limbrick? I'm sure he was actually at your campaign.
I think I met him.
You would have met him. He's a libertarian. Great, stands for many worthy causes, including yours. But I don't know if it's at the beginning of this. Let's just hear it.
Hugely diverse organisation. Labor's interesting. There are people in the Labor Party might very much strongly disagree with what their leadership's doing.
Specifically about the witch hunt against Moira Deeming and the lack of accountability you have demonstrated when dealing with female people in your own party.
Thank you, John. And of course, John, you know, the costs for your case, for your defamation case to Moira Deeming were settled last week. That's $2.3 million. So this has been on the agenda, but there are clearly women who are disappointed with how you've dealt with it.
Yeah. Before we hear his answer, David, do you find it as satisfying as I do to just watch him having to squirm through that question on a national broadcaster after losing his defamation case, after being smashed with a $2.3 million bill?
Well, I don't find any of this satisfying, I've got to be honest.
So we just need you to clear the record. Do you find any of this satisfying? Because we got into a 15-minute argument about how satisfying it was.
I am gleeful. I'm like smug, gleeful, satisfied, celebratory. You know, there's that meme, isn't there? F for random, find out. And he certainly gave us all a really perfect example of, you know, look, what did he think he was going to do? He thought he was going to ruin someone's career. He was going to get rid of someone at the party. He thought it was going to be all done and dusted. I think he sort of thought that a woman like me would come to Australia and he would be able to say these things and I would just disappear, and as would Moira. But Moira is a rare beast because she was a primary school teacher. She saw this ideology and what was happening to the children in her class, and in order to protect them, she became a politician. Like, she is a genuinely heroic, put her money where her mouth is, kind of put herself on the line to defend the rights of children to be safeguarded and not to be gaslit at school. And that obviously extends to the rights of women. So to think that someone as snake-like as Pasuto could actually take anything away from that woman and she wouldn't come out as the winner is ridiculous. And I think that I see her as I really hope, a future leader of Australia, because I think she's got the moral spine that's distinctly lacking in your politics and mine.
I dare say I agree with you on that one. I think and what they did throw at her was so unfair. And the party that you see in that interview where they're talking about now, you know, raising women up, and then in that same interview on that same panel, those same people belittled her again and didn't even give her a chance to talk. And also, they didn't give it a right of reply on the show, but also they were talking about how she shouldn't have taken it to court. She should have done what any politician could do, which is use the media to get her message out. It's like insane to me. You had the leader of her party, and she was junior. She was only a few months in at the time. He ousted her because he labelled her a Nazi, and her only real recourse was to go to the courts to overrule his powerful position. And now this same group of clowns who pretend to care about, you know, elevating women and now they're talking about quotas even in the Liberal Party. Like, it's all such gross nonsense.
Yeah.
That it's, to me, it is, if she didn't win that case, it would have, no woman would have ever spoken, or no woman at least in the political system here would have ever spoken up, because they see that the price that you pay. Now, I think that there's actually hope that somebody like Moira could make it to leadership positions, because they realise, one, she's actually tough. She's exactly what you need in politics, and she stands by her principles even when it's unpopular and going to get you into trouble, both physically and also, it may cost you your entire career and your life. And so I think we walked away with this, like, that whole story actually brought some hope to the future of Australia and this thing that you guys are fighting so hard for. You guys are fighting. You're on the front line of this fight. This is not actually a fight that we're really, how does it really affect me besides the fact that for my wife, my kids, my daughters or whatever, but the fact that you guys put everything on the line to take this fight to the front line, and thank God that there's some sort of protection you have.
Do you think, so in the UK, we have barely any charismatic politicians. No one real of note. There's not anybody that I'd think, you know what?
What about Farage?
They deserve to run this country.
I don't really like him.
Well, apart from Farage, maybe Farage, but I'm talking about the charisma, I can't even speak, of someone like Trump, like a identifiable figure. You know, maybe Farage, but
I think Farage has it
I
think Farage has it. The only issue with Farage, sometimes his ego gets he stumbles over his own ego, so he doesn't manage. But if you look at the polls in the UK at the moment, you look at that by-election you just had, he's converting Labor voters into. So he's doing something right, and I think he is charismatic. When you watch his stuff, and just don't watch too much of it because you end up tripping over his self-love. But
even that, so we've got Trump. I don't know who you have in Australia.
We don't have. We have Rukshan Fernando.
There's no one. Yeah, Trump is a larger than life character. I think it's really hard to emulate that. That's the issue.
Everyone's trying. You see all these people around the world trying.
Yeah, Farage doesn't cut across in that same manner that Trump does. Even the people that hate Trump, sometimes he converts them over somehow. Like I don't
see an alpha male thing.
Yeah, there's something going on with Trump.
It's an alpha male thing. It's a he doesn't walk so softly with a big stick, but there is. I just think we need a bit of spark and conviction. Like we used to have people in the UK called conviction politicians because it was so rare, and now we don't really have any.
That's exactly what Moira is, conviction. I think that's the word that describes it.
Yeah, that I want to believe. I don't need to agree with you, but I need to think that you believe the words that you're saying. And I think soundbite, rolling news, and all these things have had a dramatically bad impact on how people try and posture around certain issues. And I just want to know that somebody believes the things that they say. That's kind of it. And I'm on your side because I know where I stand.
Do you think Farage believes?
I'm hoping.
Does Farage believe what he says?
I don't think that man could have pulled this country from a standing start out of the EU. I mean, I don't think that Brexit has been a great success because we haven't really had it. Yeah. And I think everyone's in denial. And I think I'm quite into global currency and GDP and the kind of real out meta level, what the hell is going on with this world, as well as the minutiae. I'm also a very petty woman, like the minutiae of what's going on. But I do believe that I believe that he knew what was going on in Europe in a way that we didn't know. And I think he believes in democracy. And that's good enough for me, to be honest.
So what does your party run in? Do they run in, are you going to be running in the federal election or is it local?
Yeah, both. So we had 16 candidates in the last general election. And the thing about that over here is you get Royal Mail will post leaflets through the doors of the electorate. So we actually managed to reach 1 million people that had probably never heard of what we stand for. So we were a single issue party, but now, and the single issue really still is women, but now we talk about illegal migration and what impact that has on women and the safety of women and girls. So we talk about that. We talk about two-tier policing because we have an absolute nightmare with policing over here. I've been interviewed by the police on 3 occasions for words. I've been arrested. I had the police at my door for being untoward about paedophiles. So we've got, and you'll be familiar with Tommy Robinson. So we've got a terrible issue with two-tier policing, women being arrested for stickers. So we also look at that.
What stickers are women getting arrested for?
Well, adult, these sort of things.
The ones that say that
adult human female, adult human female stickers or thought criminal. I mean,
what do you mean they're getting arrested for that?
I mean, the police going to their house and arresting them for harassing people by putting stickers up in a toilet. Genuinely. Another woman was put in a cell.
They're saying that the act of putting it in, is it vandalism or is it that it's offensive?
Might be criminal damage and also hate speech.
Hate speech. So they're going for the hate speech for putting up stickers that say adult human female.
Yeah.
You guys have lost the actual plot, haven't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think COVID, I think you win on the madness. I think Australia really beat us in the madness there. And maybe New Zealand was world number one for insanity. Canada, obviously, truckers. They've won on the truckers. And we're definitely winning on the old policing people's speech. Like, seriously...
I don't know if we're far behind. We've got.
We're pretty close. We're getting.
We've got
there.
the e-safety commissioner.
Callie's right. All the insane videos that we see about free speech that tends to come out of the UK, and it's kind of this Bobby knocking on someone's door and just some innocent-looking person saying, "Oh, did you say this on Facebook?" Like, it's insane.
Yeah,
seeing it in the UK.
There was a man, I think, that had said something like "bless you."
Yeah,
and the police had phoned him. I mean, it makes me do. So what I do now as part of, so every month I go to Speaker's Corner in London in Hyde Park.
Well, that's the video of you that's right now making headlines.
16 million views.
On X, is that right? Just on X?
Yeah.
Because is that allowed on any other platform?
I think it is on other platforms, but on X, I am now, It's only 7 seconds.
Ladies, free your faces. Free yourselves. Free yourselves.
So what is going on there, and what's that about at the moment?
So what I do is every month we go to Reformers Tree because it's quieter, but it's still within the laws of Speaker's Corner, which means you're allowed to speak and you've got free speech. And we did that for a number of reasons. Too noisy down there. So when the women in Afghanistan, when they were no longer allowed to look out of a window, I was like, right, well, we need to go back to Speaker's Corner. We need to make sure that we have we have voices, we're allowed our faces. And so we're going to go back to Speaker's Corner, and I'm going to talk about the women in Afghanistan. I'm going to talk about the women in Iraq, the little girls in Iraq getting married off at 9 years old. I'm going to talk about the women in Iran being arrested, imprisoned and sometimes killed for not wearing a hijab. And I feel it's my duty to do that. And Speaker's Corner has now been very populated by quite aggressive Muslim men. Like it's totally dominated. And
Mohammed
it used to be
hijab,
only a couple
and they have that whole group of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So what used to happen is you would often see sort of an Orthodox Jew, like genuinely, it sounds like a joke. You'd have an Orthodox Jew, a man in quite modest Islamic garb, like the robe and everything, and you'd have a evangelical Nigerian preacher, whatever, and they'd all be laughing and joking and arguing and enjoying the kind of verbal sparring of that. And it was like, oh, isn't England just the most wonderful place on earth? But now it doesn't feel like that anymore, and it's dominated by Christians and women that have gone, Muslims and women that have gone down there, like Hatton, who you've probably heard of. She has been arrested. She got sort of injured with a knife. I think she's an ex-Muslim. Anyway, so we decided to go back every month when I do Reformers Tree, and we go and we talk about these women. And then as I was coming away, and Mary, my lovely assistant, she was following me, and I've still got the mic on. I see these two women in the niqab, and I just say, free your faces, ladies. Free yourselves, lady. Free your faces. Free yourselves. And they didn't like it very much. And I just also had a chat with an American student who doesn't like free speech either, and kept going, cis women and trans women.
Yeah, I saw that.
Men.
So when you say free your faces, like, do you? Because I 100% get the argument, but if the counter argument is some women want that, right? And we shouldn't dictate to people what they want. Do you have a problem if people wear the niqab or the hijab or any kind of clothing? What was the motivation to say that?
Well, I think it's an affront to freedom, and I think it's also an affront to the women throughout the world who don't have the choice. And I think if you choose to subjugate yourself, you have to bear the responsibility of women that don't have that choice. And you are part of the narrative that enables men to get away with beating the living daylights out of women that refuse to cover. So I put that out. And then initially it's 16 million views it was this morning. It's probably a little bit more than that. And this is just like 24 hours. I think we'd had about 11, 12 million views. And I am now, my DMs are filled, and it's quite honestly, it's one of the, I just feel so honored and very humble that these women feel that they can write to me. And it's women living in Saudi or Iran or Iraq telling me that, you know, they've even got health conditions because they never see the sunlight. And it's not a choice, and they're forced by their families. And one of them, like their brother had beaten her half to death because she didn't want to wear it, and you're not allowed to talk about it. And so I do feel it's a bit like, you know, the opposite end of this, we have pornography. I also feel very angry towards women who claim that they choose to go into the adult industry, because we know that the adult industry fuels human trafficking and sex trafficking throughout the world. So I just think if you choose to subjugate yourself, whether it's through covering yourself in a material prison or being like an OnlyFans, sleeping with boys in spring break or whatever, when you do that, you actually damage all women. And so, yeah, I don't, if it's a choice that you make, then you choose to make that choice, and it's against women.
So that's a really interesting way of putting it, Kelly. I think that's the first time I kind of heard it put in that way. And we do see a lot of times, you know, women in Afghanistan. I remember the Taliban fell, there were women protesting. We see women in Iran all the time protesting. And there is this disconnect between women in those countries fighting for freedom and then kind of the leftist progressive women in the West who tend to ignore that issue completely. Like, they're terrified of touching that subject. So obviously you're more open to talk about it in a way that is about representing the values of the West. But do you think, I saw another tweet that you put up about I think you're not monetized on X, or like there's some issue where you're having, you know, is that a problem as well, where women who do speak out a lot against this issue might not actually be, you know, they'll be in the crosshairs more in Western society as well. Like, there's still that establishment against women speaking out against these type of topics.
Like, are you monetized on any platform? No. Have you ever been and had it pulled, or is it you've just never been?
I was monetized on YouTube. So I did earn from YouTube. I think that stopped a couple of years ago. I was surprised it went on for so long. No. Probably hate speech.
What's the reason on X?
Don't know.
That's the interesting one. Yeah.
I've appealed it about 4 times because I was banned. I think I'm one of the most banned women. So I'm banned from a website called Mumsnet, which is like a parenting site. I'm banned from Patreon. I recently got debanked, so I can't have a store in Australia or America anymore because the bank I was using for that, they've said that I'm debanked. The largest printer in Europe used to print my stickers. They won't print my stickers anymore. Patreon. I can't sign a petition on Change.org. What else? I'm banned from Spring, which is a merchandise website, so I'm banned from them. Just really bad. Oh, and many of the GoFund kind of crowdfunding, Give Send Go, those sorts of, even like Give Send Go, they ban me. Oh, and Eventbrite as well.
Hold on.
I can't.
Give Send Go banned you?
Wow.
Oh, Butter. Not Give Send Go.
No, I was going to say
Sorry,
that.
Give Send Go.
Yeah, because they pretty much
I'm
put
so
anyone
sorry.
up. That would be like almost the most shocking thing you've said so far.
Yeah, sorry.
So with X, just so I understand, you were monetized, they pulled it, and then you've never just been able to get it. It's crazy.
I've never got it.
X has this weird thing. Like if you think of Tommy, he was banned for a long time, and we used to campaign to go get it back, and then he kind of came to Elon's attention. He brought him back, and then not only did he bring him back, he started campaigning on his side, and till just now, actually funding his cases. So there seems to be something still going on at some level, at least in X, that I don't know. It just doesn't add up.
Well, I'm a woman as well. I'm a woman. I'm shadow banned. I'm throttled. I'm thwarted. I was recently on Liam Tuff's...
but Elon personally, his views align with yours. He supports a Billboard Chris all the time, publicly, sharing his content and stuff like that. So I feel like I don't know. I feel like I
don't have a penis. That's what I feel like. I feel like I don't have a penis.
Do you think Elon Musk? But I've seen this pattern before with Elon Musk. Like there are people that have been targeted by the platform, and then he's come in because he's noticed them, and then he's elevated. He's not only unbanned them, he's elevated them, and I feel like it's kind of. I just can't believe that he is looking at you just because you don't have a penis and goes, nah. I haven't been watching him close enough to know if there are women. Are there women, Rukshan, that I'm sure I've seen him supporting.
I don't know. Are there? Who's a woman that he's really promoted?
I don't know. I can't. I'm thinking off the top of my head. Yeah.
Maloney, but she's
definitely got one of them pregnant, or a bunch of them.
Yeah, but has he met them?
Maybe that's the catch with Elon.
Yeah, maybe I'm just too old to have a baby. Maybe that's what it is.
Thanks so much for coming. Let's read these last couple of super chats. Rukshan, that's just
from Stu. Thanks, Stu. Cheers, champs. Thanks, mate. Thanks for the super chat. This is from Laura. Laura, thank you. Shiba dog shouting good luck in a megaphone. I do not know what that's in reference to. Maybe Kelly knows.
I think that's a picture.
Oh, that's the picture. Oh, there you go. Thank goodness you're still here. Otherwise, we would have no idea what they were talking about. Thank you guys for the super chat. Kelly, thanks so much for joining us. I'm sorry to hear that you're so targeted and censored. Are you on Facebook or anything like that you're not on?
I am, but my big account was cancelled a long time ago, like a really long time ago. So
that's one that I resonate with. I was kicked off Facebook. I lost about 1 million followers on Facebook in the old days when hate speech just became a thing. Ironically, the people that led that campaign against me all ended up having massive platforms on those on Facebook, on YouTube, on all those platforms, spewing far worse things than I ever did, especially since October 7. Like, it's just been accepted, the stuff that they say nowadays. But you're a true fighter, a bit like Moira. I think a great word to describe you is somebody with a lot of conviction. And I know you get shit thrown at you from every single direction. Just got to look at the comment section. That's a bit like Rukshan's comment section. Although Rukshan, they don't hate him because he doesn't have a penis. They just hate him because it's easy to hate Rukshan.
I got the diversity shield, so I'm protected.
Rukshan's our diversity hire. Thank you so much. Now, where can people find you? Where do you want people to follow you?
Well, come and join me on Twitter, Kellie-Jay Keen, or at the Posy Parker. I'm also on YouTube. And then my website is letwomenspeak.org, where you can come and support what I do and buy some nice merch.
And where are we going to see you next? So you're not coming to Australia. Have you tried to go back to New Zealand, or you haven't tried?
No, I haven't tried. Canada is my next country, but I'll be doing. I'm doing Let Women Speak outside of our General Medical Council and our nurses conference. I've decided, I don't do protests. I don't try and stop TRAs talking, but I go and have conversations where it's really important that women can be heard. So that's where I'll be.
Canada. Do they give a visa easier than Australia? No.
No, what you have to do is you have to fly to America and then you have to get the train into Canada.
Is that what?
Because it's only if you fly in. that they want Esther. Might be just UK thing because
Interesting.
we owned them or something. I don't know.
That's hilarious. Look, I don't think they're going to kick you out. They have a female prime minister. Surely she's supportive of you. Mark Carney.
Mark Carney.
Thank you so much for your time. Always great
Thanks,
speaking
Kelly.
to you, and we've got to do it more often.
Nice to see you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Rukshan. Look, I was thrown because I had so much more planned, but
Yeah.
I was worried she was going to leave before we get her to answer everything. What do you think?
She was great.
She's always good. I can't believe she's so.
She's a fighter. Yeah, she's very controversial in the sense of how much that she is targeted. And I think
I don't understand that.
For a long time, I think Katie Hopkins was kind of similarly targeted. I don't know if they've eased off her. But these kind of UK women who are really outspoken seem to be the forefront of being targeted by, multinational corporations around the world. I don't know why they're so scared. They're so scared of them. That must be the only thing that that I can kind of come to terms with is that, because especially the X thing is so weird, because there are accounts on X like Libs of TikTok and so on that talk about the trans issue and talk about all this stuff very openly.
There was an example. What am I talking about?
Yeah. So she's very.
Why didn't you think of that in a minute ago?
I just thought of it now. So like, she's very much supported, and she talks about very similar issues. So I find it quite fascinating, unless it's something involving the UK government. But even then, Elon kind of.
I just feel, honestly, I feel like she hasn't gained his attention yet, and it'll happen at some point when something happens.
Yeah, but it shouldn't even be like that. That's the problem.
I know.
That's the thing.
I know.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened with Tommy, and I know a lot of people want us to talk about Tommy, but if you're on the mainstream platforms, especially like on Meta and that, you get into a bit of trouble for it.
There's actually a great interview that is on YouTube with Ezra Levant from
Rebel. Yeah, check out the Rebel YouTube guys.
And Tommy, I watched that interview. That was a really good, insightful interview about all the time that he spent in jail and so on, and how everything works. So it's a very fascinating story.
Avi said Rukshan doesn't have a penis. I reckon Rukshan could sue him for that.
I think there is grounds for that. So thank you.
You have to prove it though.
Mate, look, yeah, depending on the amount.
I don't reckon they make magnifying glasses that size though.
I walked into that one.
I'm just going to stop this conversation here because that's not going to go to a good place. I just want to watch one thing that I guess we can just react to. I haven't even watched it. I just saw the headline of our good mate.
We still have not had the Royal Commission that many of us have been calling for. We haven't really even had any inquiry. Really, there was a couple of kind of semi-attempts in the Senate, which didn't really go anywhere. But this is a massive issue. This is the World Health Organization, the World Health Organization that got almost everything about COVID wrong, by the way. Masks, travel bans, you name it, they got it wrong. And now the world community, the World Health Assembly, of which Australia is a member nation, is signing up to an agreement which will lead the way for treaty obligations. Now, out of this government, we hear the usual guff about, well, this doesn't do anything to Australia. We are still in control of our own, of our own destiny. Which
so why sign it
until the point that the country? Well, correct. Why sign it in the first place? And of course, then the process will simply be rubber stamped through the Australian Parliament. That is just the normal way when we sign up to obligations. And then Australia will start making domestic laws, as we saw with the Biosecurity Act and the international health regulations during COVID, which stopped Australians from travelling unless they were injected. This is my view is we need to get out of the World Health Organization, full stop. That's what the Trump administration have done, and they've done it because the Trump administration is putting America first. This needs to be an Australia first agenda. If you went back into a different era and you said, I've got a deal for you, we're going to let unelected bureaucrats in a foreign country tell you how to run your pandemic. When a pandemic occurs, that's what it'll do. They'll be able to declare a pandemic, and what you do as your own sovereign nation at the time it happens, you would run from it from a mile. Why is this government going anywhere near this? We need to walk away from the World Health Organization.
Yeah, I mean, that's been happening in the last couple of days. Yeah, Alex Antic, I think, one of the last remaining true conservative liberals, and he does a great job, and he actually explained that really well. Like the idea about rubber stamping, and that's what really all of this becomes, because Australia is so eager to sign up to these international agreements, like the pandemic treaty and things like, especially the Labor governments, even the Liberal governments. They're all for this because it gives them that layer of cover for the things that they introduce into this country, because they have something to fall back on. So I think they really enjoy having that foreign involvement in Australia. Whereas the Trump administration, of course, is completely different. Just throw everyone out. We make our own rules, because I feel like they feel that these foreign entities take advantage of them financially in a major way, because America really puts up a lot of the funding for a lot of these organizations. Whereas Australia, I don't think that burden is there as such. So they enjoy that. I don't know, whatever comes with being a part of these foreign organizations. We sign up to almost everything you can think of.
We still have not had the Royal Commission that many of us have been calling for.
Anything that the UN puts up, like Australia pretty much signs it straight away. Like there's no kind of, no second thought when it comes to these agreements. So it is to our detriment. Like, be a part of that pandemic treaty. And the next time it comes around, this 1 in 100 year pandemic, so-called, that they keep talking about, but they talk about it in the terms of it's going to happen again soon, so we have to be in this. When it does come around, it's going to be great, because they have all these other protections now for them, not for the rest of us. It's crap for us.
It is indeed. It's just there's no hope for us, because over the next whatever amount of years, Alex Antic is going to be a silenced voice. But it would be good to see one day an Australia and a Victoria led by your Alex Antics and your Moira Deemings, people of, as Kellie-Jay Keen would say, conviction. Yeah, Ezra talked to Tommy on YouTube. Yeah, he did. There is on YouTube seems to allow. I think they let the talk on, so you can go check that out. It's a really good interview. Actually, he called me right when he got out of jail. I think I mentioned it in the last episode, because it was right before I came on. I got a FaceTime, and then I got a shock seeing his face. But there's a lot of.
I watched that. I shared that video on YouTube, and I thought it was like a representative for Tommy or something speaking first before Tommy comes out. And it's only later I realized, like, that guy with the beard, and like he looks like there's a tweet. There's a tweet they showed, like a meme that I think Tommy shared it as well, where it's like the guy from Home Alone. Yeah, like he looked like that. So I didn't recognize it at all. But
my wife came running in and showing me that. She thought that was so funny.
It's so funny.
It is pretty funny.
It is pretty funny, but he's cleaned up well, and he's done a good interview with Ezra there. So I think Rebel has really been at the forefront of.
Well, as a Rebel alumni, to be honest, I'm only with Rebel because of him. Because I worked for Tommy from 2000. I think it was like 2017 to 19, in that period.
TR News.
When he was in and out of jail, and then. That TR News was forced to shut down during the era of just because of the legal battles that were happening, the lawfare. And so Tommy was one that Tommy basically, like, you should go to Rebel, and he and I only met Ezra really from Tommy, from covering all the stuff, all his protests. I was going back and forth from the UK to Australia. Sometimes I did like a trip there, so you'd fly for 24 hours or whatever, be there there was one time that I think I was on the ground for maybe 17, 18 hours and back. But yeah, I was going there a lot, and I met Tommy, I met Ezra through that. And then obviously when shutting down TR News, he was the one that pushed that along, and I've been like I'd consider him like a brother to me, and we've always been in touch. And I talked to his family through the whole time that his team while he's incarcerated. It is there are different layers to it. There's the inspiring part to it, where I look at some of his story and I go, wow, he's just like, I wish I had 100th of the guts that guy has.
Yeah.
Talk about conviction. That's conviction. Like, think about it. He's been locked up, had his teeth knocked out. He's almost been killed. He's, and I've witnessed it with my own eyes when he walks down the street, and if somebody starts, he'll never back down from a fight, as in somebody, like, he'll talk to anybody and somebody attacks him. He will never back down. Where I'm looking at him going, God, what are you doing? But he's just tough on every level, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Like, it's just crazy to think of the things that he's been through. Some of the stuff in life he's brought upon himself, but so much that they've thrown at him that he's so unfair, and at every level. Think about it. When you're somebody that, for your activism, I'm not talking about the Andrew Tate style bull where you have somebody there who has all this crazy checkered past and people who have made criminal allegations from before you were even famous, and then suddenly when you're famous, then you start to claim that it's because you're speaking out, the Matrix is coming together. No, Tommy was not like Tommy. Yeah, he had his previous history prior to when he was famous, but when he got into his activism, they came at him for his activism time and time again, and it was everyone. It was the state, it was the establishment, the media, everyone came for him, and he's still around. Like, they thought they would have buried him, and for a period they kind of did. Like, after they locked him up a few times, lost his teeth, and then they took away all his social media, and he had nothing until Elon Musk came and literally saved him. And the thing about Tommy is, people see a real, love him or hate him, agree with him or disagree with him, he is a real person, genuine, honest. There's conviction. He's not Piers Morgan, who I just tweeted about before because I'm watching his latest stuff. I'm like, mate, that guy changes his opinion with the wind.
Well, that's Piers. Yeah.
Piers Morgan.
I think.
I
saw, like, what I saw from Tommy was, like, everything you say. Like, I don't know him personally, like the way that you know him, but I think the sacrifices that he's made has been impactful. Obviously, people that don't support him would never want to admit this. And he kind of also touches on the fact that the reason that them coming after him actually amplifies the type of message that he's trying to get out to the public. So even though that he's going through all of this, and it does impact him personally, and the toll that we see, prison and this kind of solitary confinement, it actually has the impact of getting it out to someone like Elon's attention and the rest of the world learning about these kind of, the issues in the UK immigration or these rape gangs, whatever. So he has been very effective as an activist, even though a lot of the time has been spent in the courts and jail and fighting those issues. I think people are coming around to seeing, the state for what it is. And they're no longer looking at the things that Tommy's saying and the things that the government are saying on equal standing. They're understanding slowly that the government, there is an agenda there. And it is these people that they try to keep pushing down and silencing them to the extraordinary extent they've gone against Tommy. These are the people that perhaps are telling us things that we should be looking at, not whether it's true or not, but what the information that will make society better if we tackle these issues. And they're people like Tommy, and I think he's really elevated himself to that position now, where it's I think it's beyond activism. Like, he's got this kind of thing around him, like I would say something like a Mandela effect, like you know what I mean? Like, there's a level, like a Julian Assange. He's another figure like this. You say these names and it invokes some kind of feeling or something about injustice, and he does that, I think, and he's elevated himself to that position. So it's a very powerful position I think he holds now, and a lot of attention that he holds. So the government are probably even more terrified of him now, really.
That's why I think they're laying more charges again.
More charges. So it's only going to get harder for him, but I think he's being effective.
Well, at least now he's got Elon on his side. That's all I can say.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, we've got one more here. Let's just read this one.
That's from Catherine. Catherine, thanks again for the super chat. Us Strong still followed Tommy through it all.
It's true. And you know what's funny is the people on the right that I've noticed that have come out hard against Tommy, like on X, you see him, especially those new neo-Nazis, proud Nazis that I'm not talking about the ones that were always Nazis. I'm talking about like there's a bunch of especially British ones.
Yep.
I'm not going to name them because they would love the clout, but they I know because in 2017, 18 in that period I was in 19 I was going, like I said, back and forth between here and England, and those guys were begging Tommy for clout. They were trying. These were the guys trying so hard, like coming to me because I was out about on the street doing videos or whatever, and so they didn't really have access to Tommy, but I was hanging out. So I was on the street working, hanging out with these guys, and then I was like staying with Tommy and that crew, and they would beg for me. It's just funny. I see him on X now bagging him out. They were begging him to pay attention to them, and now that they try to kick people down while they're down, you know what I mean? And it's just funny because it will never, anyone that does that, they're mistaken, like while there's this little period now where it's popular to hate Jews or whatever online, fine, whatever. And so they think now they can get back at Tommy for not paying attention to them back then by tying him to the Jew thing. And it's like, mate, the thing you don't know about him is that you obviously haven't been paying attention because it doesn't matter. You can try to you can throw anything you want at him and say whatever you want about his intention, whatever. He's been consistent the whole time, and he will overcome it because people see through it. And the state has done that. The government has done it. The media has done it. They've thrown so much dirt at that guy. Hardly any of it's true. Some of it stuck for a bit and then fell away. The same thing's going to happen about this and those people online that are just riding that wave and trying to jump on it to be able to summon. And those ones, they know exactly who they are. You're such losers because remember, I know that you know that we know. You were begging. You were on all fours begging for his attention. And you know what? The difference between me and him, he obviously saw you for who you were back then. He obviously saw you. I was still relatively new to the game, so when somebody told me that their point of view, their worldview, I took it on face value. And then I realized that there are a lot of, there's a spectrum of Piers Morgans, people who change with the wind, their opinion, they go to the complete opposing worldview. I'm talking about these clowns that used to walk around in London with British and Israeli flags. Now they're condemning Tommy Robinson for being a Nazi. Mate, sit down. Sit down. Yeah. I think I probably even have your text messages where you're begging for his attention. And guess what? At the end of it, he'll walk away and people will look at him and they'll say what you want about him. He's never changed his stance. He's always advocated for the same things. And unlike Piers Morgan, how many things has Piers Morgan changed his mind on? COVID.
Almost everything. Everything he changed his mind on.
Black Lives Matter. Donald Trump. Every single freaking issue. Piers
I mean,
Morgan,
he's a CNN guy. Like, this is a CNN guy. This is someone that I'm pretty sure he had
he was. He had
on CNN. So these guys
that
don't
he can
really
do
change.
to get clicks now, and especially now because he's gotten worse with time because now the clicks mean most to him. Like, ratings matter when you work for CNN or whatever, but it doesn't matter like the actual clicks making you money, and that's what he is. And I'm glad our boy's out and, he's had his haircut. So get ready, ladies. Those of you who like him, there's going to be a fun ride. For those that hate him, get ready to be triggered. And those that are jealous, well, you haven't seen nothing yet. Oh. You may still come back round to your re-begging.
Yeah, that usually tends to happen. That's the way of the world. This is like
what do you think of Candace Owens attacking Elon Musk for defending? I didn't even see that. I might look that up. That is you know what? I wasn't thinking of her, but she'd fit into that. She's from that.
I think she's turned into this person. Like, you know, I used to be a massive Candace fan, and I think she was doing some videos on, you know, Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel Macron and that whole slap incident. And that was like great. You know, that's funny. There's some work that she does that is great, but I think she has a lot of personal animus against individuals for their views on a certain issue, and that makes her view them in a way now. And then she's very open about that because, you know, that's kind of her only factor that, you know, decides whether someone's good or bad, is just this one singular issue. So, you know, if you support Israel for whatever reason, for Candace, you're like, you know, not a good person. So Elon supporting Tommy, something like this, is something, you know, she finds some link and she's like, nah, you know, there's a problem.
I didn't see it. I didn't know. I didn't know. I
didn't know that either.
I hope she does it more, to be honest, because people will see through her. People will wake up to her when they realize that she's willing to throw somebody like him, who has been on the forefront of all the fights that she claimed to care about. I know she's also like Pierce. Think about her. She's actually perfectly like Pierce. She also started on the left, went to the right, and now is going to some weird pro-Islamist, anti-Israel, like everything is obsessed like that. The only Jew she seems to be defending these days is, what's his name?
Which one?
She just did like a thing on it, which was actually like, the video was pretty good. What's the one from Hollywood that's locked up?
Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein. Yeah,
I know. Isn't it funny that the only Jew that Candace Owens wants to defend is a convicted rapist? Like, I actually watched what she did, like a part of it. I thought,
that's what I mean. She's doing really interesting work.
I kind of actually believe like, I think that there's some truth to that. I don't think anyone's going to take it too seriously because she's just such an obsessed Jew hater, who the only Jew she's defending is a convicted sex predator. That definitely wasn't a good guy, by no means. But was he stitched up by the Me Too movement? Probably, I agree. He's Macron's wife or husband. I don't know.
That slap was pretty forceful. I mean,
that was pretty forceful.
The whole Macron thing, how it's kind of publicly playing out, is one of the most fascinating stories. I think if he was like close to like an American leader or something, it would be talked about more.
Yeah.
But it's so fascinating, the whole story, like his relationship with his wife, so called, and so on, like the age difference, and now this slap, just fascinating stuff. And the way they all play it all down is also like fascinating. So I enjoy that aspect of Candace's work. I think she does really good work when she focuses, on things.
The Macron thing. The Macron thing's funny. I think she that, I feel like she goes a bit like, it's so obsessive with like the whole. Like, why is that the most important story?
It's not important. It's not important. I mean, even if if the wife turns out to be a bloke, I mean, who cares? Like, it's
what does it change in
It doesn't change anything. It's just like, what does it explain? I don't know. It
makes Macron's a bit of a freak. Or a victim, or whatever. I don't know, but like the obsession over that, like it's the most important story. She called it the most important story of 2023. Like that was something. Like I actually think I think the Weinstein story or whatever is actually more, important, like because of the consequences of that, but. And I thought that was like actually pretty good journalism for once from her.
Yeah.
But she's an obsessed, full of hate. And if it's true what somebody wrote, that she went after Elon for Tommy support, she's an absolute clown. A clown. Mate, she's got that lunatic running the show now. Like, that guy is...
Ian.
Oh my God. It's just like... Ian Carroll makes Alex Jones seem reasonable.
I mean, he is kind of the left-wing... He comes across as a left-wing Alex Jones to the extent of, being extremely out there in the way that he presents his ideas. Like, Alex Jones is famous for this, for saying things there, which, many times has been proven to be correct. but it's because he throws out everything there.
I know that's the thing. Like if you throw out enough, I play with that stuff as well. Like I remember, I'll go, "Oh, Alex Jones is right again," because it's funny. But if you look at how many predictions Alex Jones makes in a single show,
I watch the shows, so
and then count how many, and like he's an entertainer, he's funny, and if you see in court, he actually. That he used that as a defense. I'm just an entertainer, but like he throws out so many conspiracies and predictions that never end up being true. And every once in a while, a crazy one of his predictions or conspiracies actually end up being true. And like you can't help it but go online and go, Alex Jones is right about everything. It's like
it's fun. It's fun. Like he's like someone that represents kind of the media, the independent media or the kind of the alternative media taking on the establishment, and he's been silenced, and he does that really well. And look, he's been at the forefront of highlighting a lot of these things, similar to kind of what Candace and Ian does, but I think they take a lot of liberties with the way that they talk about these issues. Like it's more on emotion and how people are pitted against each other that they feed on. So it's not really conspiratorial in the sense that, it's like Alex Jones style conspiracy, the things that he talks about. It's more so like, okay, there's this group, they're pitted against this group now. I want the attention of this particular, group of people. So I'm going to say things which match that, because that seems to be the way that popular opinion is going. Because right now, defending Israel is not the most popular thing to do for a lot of these commentators. So I feel like it's that. Whereas Alex Jones, I feel like he actually just, throws it all out there. He's not really trying to be popular as such.
He does to a degree. That's a problem. Alex Jones as well. Like he was in this conflict.
For example, some of the this at the start.
No, I'm saying but like so he'll go from like having a principled position and arguing it well, and then the audience capture gets too much for him as well, because you got to think for Alex Jones. 95% of his audience would have been taking a different position, and he was like hanging in there. And then at one point you just watched, and because I even was on his show and had this discussion with him when I was in Davos, I think, not this last one, the one before, and I was like, man, you're a legend. Good on you for, like, I know your audience is not with what you're saying, but good on you for being principled. And then he just one night shifted, because even for him, it's like, all right, audience capture, got to go with the flow, got to go with what's trending.
Well, this issue, Israel-Palestine, is probably the most polarizing issue of ever, like in history. And for if when it comes to Islamic terrorism, if you look at American commentators, if it was any other country and this terrorism attack had happened, they would be 100% like, let's invade that country, or all these kind of things. But on this particular issue, they're torn between these kind of, I'm not saying everyone, but there is this kind of views that have existed against the Jewish the state for a long time, and they're torn between that, and you see that struggle playing out. Whereas Candace, I think she didn't want to go through that whole route. She just went in one direction that worked.
It's just funny that funniest for me about her is that she was clout chasing back in Trump's first administration when they moved the embassy to Jerusalem. She was there taking photos, saying how good it was.
That's what I mean, yeah.
And then and that's because back then the right was all for it, like the whatever you want to call them, like the fringe right, far right, the kind of I don't know what you call them, whatever label you want to give them, but not the center right. Well, the center right is still, but it's that kind of Candace right.
Alt-right.
The alt-right, they were really for Israel at that time because Trump was, and it was popular then. And then when the wind changes, these people went. And then I like with her how she uses the fact that she was there as her defense to why she's got a an educated kind of position. I was there. I supported him. I was there. And I saw it with my own eyes. How can you have a Muslim quarter in Jerusalem? And then she goes and says the dumbest things like that. And you're like, bro, you don't know what you're talking about. You just, you're like all of them. You're clout chasing. And even Piers Morgan, I'm watching his shows today and I'm like, mate, this guy is literally I could cut up if I could be bothered. Piers Morgan a year and a half ago versus Piers Morgan today, and you could do that with all those guys. Like with all those guys, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, like all those big right wing guys. With Piers, you could do it on almost every issue.
Yeah,
on almost
That's
every
true.
issue. Let's read these couple of supers. Thanks for the super
It's from
chat, guys. Really
Abby
appreciate it.
King. Thank you, Abby. I used to love Candace, but for Christians, she gives people very little grace. And I think this is another phenomenon. I know we're kind of keep on talking about this, but there is this thing now where a lot of these commentators will be like, Christ is king, and they'll kind of use a shield of Christianity to say all these kind of things, and sometimes attack people as well. They'll use it as a shield. It's a new thing. Like it's not something that's always been happening. I've seen Christians being a lot more reserved, and they kind of put it down to the fact that theythey feel like they're being attacked now. And look, there is truth to that.
There are some,
these commentators have started using it as like this shield, like they're kind of what they're
like
doing and everything.
They use it as a weapon sometimes. Like it's like
weapon and a shield at the same time. And it's really interesting because I, as a Catholic, as a Christian, from the Christian kind of background, it's not necessarily something that we do in that same manner, but it's become popularized in American podcast. I think even Joe Rogan is recently attending church or something. That's what I saw online. So
it's become,
there is a shift. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying there is a shift happening where people are putting their religious connection to things to have extreme views sometimes on certain topics, and whether that's honest and they honestly feel that way, I don't necessarily know. Because
all
sometimes
I know
it's
is
performative.
when I meet real Christians, not internet Christians that kind of answer every one of my posts with a Christ is king, screw you Jew. The real Christians I meet are super nice and warm, and they're trying to actually they're often trying to bring me to Christianity, and they actually practice what they preach of love and like they're the nicest, realest people. That's not the vibe I get off a lot of these internet Christians, and especially I find this thing like newly converted Catholics on the internet. It's like
that's another thing as well.
It's a new breed of fake Christians. Like they're just so not real. Like they're and like you've got what's his name, Russell Brand, like that style. That then they go from being these really objectively horrible people that led really bad lives, did some horrible especially from a religious perspective thing, and then they're converted and they're preaching what God means, and it's like,
I mean, look, at the heart of it, that is kind of the Christian message. So there's that as well. Like it's all a part. It's all a part of the Christian message, but I do think it's being glamorized to an extent, or being used as a shield or a weapon at times. And I see this a lot now with the kind of ethno-nationalist, white neo-Nazi movements that do this as well. They'll say the most insane things about people, and you look at their profile and they've got the cross of Christ and stuff,
and they'll have that in their bio.
It's all about the Knights Templar. It's all about the
they're like the new virtue signaling. That's why you call them. That's why I call them the woke right. Like because they act so much like the woke left. Like they'll preach tolerance. They'll say they'll have their pronouns, like they'll have their pronouns in their bio, or they'll have Christ is king in their bio. They both say that these Christians say that they're all about love and tolerance, like preaching Jesus' word, which were good. And then it's so similar to me that I think it's just human nature. When you get extremists, they're just like that, and they'll hide behind whatever. So for the left, their religion is the cult of transgenderism and LGBTQ stuff.
Well, if you want to say kind of crazy things about the world and people, and you can kind of justify it in kind of this kind of Christian grounding or something, well, it's a good defense to some of the wacky ideas that you might have. And That's what I find anyway with these kind of neo-Nazi movements that do this a lot now, where they have this shield of like, oh well, we're trying to make this kind of Christian world. That's why we have to deport everyone, and so on.
Why do they want to deport you? Aren't you Christian enough?
Yeah, no. Well, apparently in the Bible it said Christ talks about having different nations, so that means we should have.
Do they realize that? Like, I'm pretty sure Jesus was like, wasn't he?
Well, you should see the debates around that.
Oh, is there a debate around that?
There's debates around that online as well from these individuals about the type of.
Is there not like an accepted, like in Christian schools? Is there not
there is kind of an accepted overall view of this, but the new view, the woke right view, is very different to that, and it's about finding how Jesus was like kind of an early type of European. It's really
funny they'll say that. You know what's funny to me now, just thinking about this, is they'll say that he's European, but so then what you're arguing is that Europeans were there. What is it?
Like the ancestors?
2,000 years ago. And then you're the same people complaining that Jews in Israel are Europeans and they should go back. But if Jesus was there on the same land 2,000 years ago,
it's all over the place, man. This stuff is all over the place.
Here we go. Let's read this.
That's why I get too involved. She'll Apples, thanks for the super chat. Shiba Dog shaking his hips. Thank you, the Shiba Dog. Perfect. Maybe we can't see the emoji, but
is it an emoji?
Shiba Dog. Well, I know Shiba is like a cryptocurrency, like a meme coin type thing. So
is somebody just promoting their meme coin?
No, it's a very well established coin, so it's fine. There's a neat promotion.
I'm so out of the loop on that stuff. I don't know nothing about it. I just want you to make me rich one day with your information. And here we go. Do you think
the Book of Light says, do you think Matt Walsh hates gay people or just very conservative? See, I think Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles, especially from the Daily Wire and from people who are, I think, practicing Christians or whatever, they come across as the most normal when they talk about these topics. And I think that's what they really. I'm
hoping we don't lose Matt Walsh. I'm hoping.
There was one issue where he kind of went, and that was the recent thing around go give send go.
To that girl,
where he was a bit conflicted from his normal views, but overall, consistently, I think he's very consistent. Especially Michael Knowles as well. He's also very consistent. From the Daily Wire group, they're being pretty consistent.
Look, I'll tell you this, Matt Walsh. I've loved some of his work, but I've learnt now in the last few years, loving some of somebody's work doesn't, you can also look at it and go, I hope the motives that are there and that the conviction is there to stand what you believe in and that everything you believe in is actually genuine and right. There has been a lot of chatter online from those same groups that are kind of owning Matt Walsh, and he hasn't done much to quash them. Mm-hmm. I do fear that Matt Walsh might end up in that place. I feel like he's tempted at the moment. When I read, maybe I'm just reading into it and I'm paranoid because I've seen so many people that I never expected to turn. But I feel like sometimes silence and letting, kind of conspiracies about your position in something like the Daily Wire, letting it fester online and letting it just spread. And not really, you're the first. You could squash it easily, but he doesn't. And then he has these weird positions on like that thing, and I just think I would. If you asked me 2 years ago, I would have been like, no.
I think it's a uniquely American thing, though. So we're a bit different. I reckon it's a uniquely American kind of.
In what way?
Outlook on the world. Like they struggle with the whole concept of not struggle with it. Sorry, they're like when it comes to free speech and things, they have certain views that are very ingrained.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not talking about specifically that issue. I'm not saying
that issue, but I'm saying overall for everything. Like the allowance for some issues to be not that they don't go after, for instance, it's like more, they look at it more like, okay, well, they're allowed to speak about it type thing, unless it's kind of something that we have to address, we won't. There's a bit of that going on, I think.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the political views. I think that there's, like, I don't know if you've noticed, online there has been a lot of speculation around Matt Walsh and many of like those neo-Nazis, the ones that we're kind of talking about, the white supremacists, the ones that say the craziest stuff and then you go look at their bio, the woke right, the ones that we're talking about. They have, over the last, I'd say 6 months, been pushing this narrative. And I think I probably even, I don't know why I was just halfway swearing. I think I'm getting tired. But Ian Carroll, just thinking of his name makes me want to swear. Ian Carroll, I think I've seen him even push it, if I'm not mistaken, that Matt Walsh is on their side. So that's it. Just from that point, it's like with everything that's happening at the moment, you would think that the one guy who's seeing it all, who's seeing all the things surrounding his name and all the conspiracies involving him, you'd think he would just quash him if he was genuinely in Daily Wire doing the work there, not involved, like really a part of the team, and that they're, I've often heard them talking about the Overton window. It's so broad that it lets him have his views, and I don't have a problem with his views. Like, I actually listen to his views even on things like Israel. Like they've always been 100% fine. They're just, you can believe in not funding Israel. That's not a problem. And even at the Daily Wire, they've made a point of doing that. But I feel like he might be getting a taste of the audience on a bit of the Candace audience, and thinking
it's possible.
And if it isn't, he should have just shut him up a while ago, but he's not. So that makes me think that maybe, like, I was way more surprised watching the unraveling of Candace Owens than I would be if Matt Walsh goes now too. Like Michael Knowles, I'd be shocked. Because when he talks about God and Christianity, and it's always been consistent, and he can disagree on, again, these issues of foreign aid and all that, but it's absolutely in a good faith manner, not coming from a hateful. And this all goes back to the comment that somebody that super chat somebody just gave us, is like, do you get the sense
talking about it?
What? That's what got us talking about. He's like, do you get the sense that he is genuine about his views, or is it coming from a hateful place? And it's actually a good question these days, like, because now you can see, like, people might be right about the issues, but their motive may be bad. And then if their motive's bad, like, you can still listen to their arguments and learn something from it. But if their motive bad, you got to know, why are they pushing this message? Because what is their motivation? What are they trying to achieve from it? And if it is just to bring people along on this other journey that is a bit more malicious and not as pure intentioned as what you think it is, you got to be careful. Like, these days, we've got to be careful. On the right, there is a fracture on the right, and I'm hoping in the next few years it realigns. I thought the Trump presidency would bring people back into the kind of normal space, but it hasn't. Like, sadly, Trump's presidency has so far been way more chaotic, and not in the chaotic that I thought was going to be great. Like, it's been that chaotic that Australia and Canada fell. Yes, a big part of that is about how both opposition leaders responded to the chaos. Responded to the chaos. But also, there's like just the fact that it happened. Like, if Trump didn't do the tariffs then and then waited like till after both those elections, we wouldn't even have that problem. So things have played out in a, I admit it, not a way.
I mean, there is a big discussion going online on X right now in terms of the MAGA movement, and terms like woke right being thrown around, and differences like paid people and who's being influenced by Qatar, and all these kind of things are happening, and it comes really from success. So whenever you have a really successful movement and this kind of euphoric type of movement where you are really successful, especially in American terms of crushing the other side, crushing the left in the way that it was crushed in terms of a culture war win for Trump with everything that was thrown at him, and then the people around him that supported him. Now everyone looks at that victory of Trump and they see something about what they represented. So the extreme elements perhaps that are kind of more nationalistic, some of these kind of Nick Fuentes, these gropers or whatever, like they see it as what their movement.
Never forget that they encourage people to vote Biden.
Yeah, what impact? Yeah, that's true. What impact their movement had, and then you have these other groups like you're talking about, right? This kind of alt media groups, and they talk about the impact that they had and what Alex Jones' group had, and there is these fractures showing. Definitely, it's more evident now that there's kind of a clear, definitive winner in the American political space, which is Trump.
Yeah,
it's more obvious now, these kind of differences and this infighting and arguing, and it's kind of what the left does. They have these extreme ideologies in the left, and not everyone's a crazy person on the left, but you do tend to get the more kind of louder voices and extreme voices on the left kind of elevate themselves when it comes to these kind of culture war topics, and you're seeing that a little bit on the right as well.
Yeah.
And it's this kind of back and forth between finding that balance of what it means to be an American and what these issues mean and what, rights and all this kind of stuff mean. So we get to watch that from the outside as Australians, because I don't think our political space is that fragmented in that way. We really haven't found ourselves like in the way that the Americans have when it comes to these issues.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I think it was heading that way in this election. I feel like there was like the push.
There was a little bit of that. There was a little bit of that, for sure.
And that's what we're talking about. That's the stuff that we weren't liking watching, especially amongst the minor parties. But it is what it is. I saw somebody wrote Charlie Kirk is the best. I honestly, he's been our saving grace at the moment. And it's crazy to me that they've allowed him to thrive on places like TikTok.
He's very successful. He's actually, they're doing, I just saw Joel Jamal, who joins us sometimes to host. He's in Hungary, and they're holding CPAC in Hungary. So, they're being very effective in terms of getting out that message. And it's interesting that it hasn't been as effective in Australia.
No.
These kind of conservative movements, that we don't really have that here. It's really interesting, but hopefully Charlie Kirk kind of sets the groundwork for the rest of the world to follow in terms of what can be done in terms of getting across to younger voters.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where the fight really is. In the younger generations, where the countries are headed.
Mate, on that note, where can people find you if they are scraping the bottom of the barrel that low?
If you're scraping the bottom of the barrel and you want to, get some insights from what I think about issues that are happening, and it's not as frequent as Avi. I don't complain and cry about everyone as much as Avi does on X, but you can find me at The Real Rukshan on X, also on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and on my website, www.realrukshan.com. So that's where you can find me. But yeah, my preferred platform is X.
And whatever platform you're watching this on now, make sure to hit the notification bell, especially YouTube if you want to get involved on in the lives. Going to be doing a lot more. I've actually got an exciting little project setting up. I spent half the day today setting it up. You can probably see my bags under my eyes. Getting ready for, I think next week I'm going to be doing a lot more lives, engaging lives, debating lives. So make sure to head over to YouTube, because those will be exclusively to YouTube. And for all of those getting involved in the super chats, thank you so much for supporting the channels. All this none of it is possible without you guys. And for those who loved my t-shirt, the Pride Flag t-shirt, hold on, I think I can change camera. Let me try something here, Rukshan. rebelstore.com.au, you can get the t-shirt, but I think I can go, there you go.
Oh.
Did that work? Yeah.
That's good. Is this for Pride Month? Is that the on special for Pride Month? What is it?
This is my pride flag every day, but it turned out the wrong day to be wearing it after our country embarrassed itself so hard with Kellie-Jay. I can't believe she's not allowed back in. But on that note, good night, Rukshan.
Good night, mate. Good night.
Sleep tight.
See you all next week, Tuesday.
Is Shani going to have to carry you to bed?
I can actually show you guys. So I'm not kidding about my damages. This is my crutches. So I have 2 of these, and I'm still getting around on crutches. My foot is I'm actually in a bit of pain as well doing this. So my foot is bandaged up, and hopefully I can walk soon. So
hold on, before we go, what did the doctor say your massive injury is?
They don't know.
No, your wife told me. They said it's nothing. Rukshan has been diagnosed with nothing. Good night, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.